Hip hooray.
Awesome. Hip hip hooray. Welcome to the Postcast.
Hey, where we're still awake.
And it is 10:35 p.m.
We did
On
a great
Tuesday
job
night.
keeping the time down on that podcast. Good
Yes.
job, ladies.
Thank you. Appreciate
If only
that.
we could be so succinct when we are live.
I guess just have me tired all the time. I think that I babble more when I'm tired. I guess it just depends on my mood, right?
I don't think any of us are going to touch that.
Oh, right. Yeah, because you guys are always so kind and never insult me.
So, am I meaner when I'm hungry or when I'm walking the dog? Can you girls just tell me when I'm meaner?
In the morning when you first come into office hours.
Yes, leave me alone. Do not talk to me.
I think this morning you said, I'm not putting my headphones on, so just deal with it.
I'm not.
Hey.
I was like, okay.
All right, so the Patreon is for the Postcast. We should have like an upper level where they can actually watch us while we do office hours, because that's when the real, we're like in our pajamas, we're like surly sometimes, we're like, that's when the real character comes out. Guess what?
Oh, what?
I got another review from someone I don't know.
Yay!
Oh, yay!
I hope it was good, or you would not probably be.
I know. I mean, I wonder how I'm going to act when I get my first negative. Part of me thinks I'm not going to care, but you don't know until it actually happens, right?
You want me to go in there anonymously and do one?
No, because it won't be the same.
I won't tell you. It's me.
It also will depend too on how mean they are, and if there's any truth to it.
Well, if it's super mean, you can just laugh at it.
That will really hurt if it's true.
Yeah, if you're like, yeah,
if you know it's just bogus, you're kind of like, whatever.
Right.
The worst thing about that, I think, is because if somebody is able to put their finger right into the thing that bothered us about the piece, then that is hurtful. But if they just disagree, you think it's great and they don't, that's one thing. But let's say you just had this character that never really seemed real to you or something, and that's exactly what they say, know? Although I guess then on the other hand, you would be like, well, I kind of knew that, right? So I suppose it would be something that you at first are like, no, blah, blah, blah. And then after a while you're like, well, maybe blah, 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 I would imagine that would be, it's probably like the stages of grief. Anger, denial, whatever.
I wonder what would be worse, though. Somebody actually hitting on something that you felt was a truth, that was yeah, that is a problem with the book. Or somebody going in there and giving you a terrible review, and maybe you could tell they hadn't even read the book. I think that might be worse.
That would make me mad.
Somebody who's just a troll, because it happens. It just wants to be a jerk.
Well, it happened to me,
and especially
I'll tell you.
Especially since we are marketing ourselves as Christian authors, I think we might get some more trolls than maybe some other people.
I wonder. Huh.
Okay, well, guess what? Randy Miser took my bribe and put Tina first.
Oh boy.
So it's Tina, Rhonda, Jamie, Jen today.
We put on my armor.
So Jen will be sleeping through her critique.
Right? Because I'm going to be last, I have to be quiet at the end. So you know how that's going to turn out.
Jen, wake up. You can come out of isolation now.
Before we started the podcast, I said, all right, what is our code word that we're going to say for you to hear us and know that you need to wake up? And I'm like, so to know that you're sleeping. And I'm like, wake up? And they're like, how are we going to remember that code word? All right, Tina, what are you looking for from us in this?
Okay, so I don't know if everybody got to read I just uploaded a revision because we all submitted last week and we didn't have the postcast last week. And this scene that I gave you I wanted the feedback last week because it was just bugging me. There was just something, it wasn't working. I didn't know what it was. I didn't like it. So anyway, I couldn't wait. I revised. It's almost completely different. I mean, it's the same story, but it made a lot of changes. So hopefully you guys got a chance to read that. If not, just give me the. It'll be interesting to hear if you didn't like the same things I didn't like. So if you didn't read it, I'm not going to be mad.
All right.
So that's fine.
All right. You're in isolation.
Okay.
I can't say the word, but you're in it.
Please, can I go first?
Yes.
Okay. Here's the thing. She changed in the revision, which I admit I forgot that she had said she had uploaded a revision, so I could only really scan it today. But what she did was she gave the dog a name. Okay. And what she did was she used the device of having the girl come in and say to the owner man person, his name should be Chugiak, which is wonderful because then the whole rest of the story doesn't have to be the pup and variations of, which I understand is a struggle. The whole thing I wanted to say was when people whelp, don't they tie a string or something around all of the dogs? And wouldn't the dog be called yellow or red, or you know what I'm saying? Because when people are selling dogs, they usually ban them or somehow mark them to indicate, and then that is what they are referred to until they are sold off. So my suggestion was kind of like Chugiak could possibly not even get a band and just be called Runt or something. So that had been my original critique. Now, she had instead changed it to where the girl is going to name the dog Chugiak. So that's kind of like what happens in the revision that I could see without tediously rereading it, because I've shared with this author before that I'm not going to be her friend who's going to be able to read 5 revisions and tell her which revision is like the best revision, because my ADHD brain is just like, I've already read this story. I just can't even, right? Mm-hmm. But I did catch that she had done that with the girl, and I did like it. The one thing that I wanted, though, was for her to be like a reason why the dog should be called Chugiak, because the little girl just goes, his name should be Chugiak. Sounds good to me, kid. And then the dog's name is Chugiak. Like, so I feel like if she's going to stick with going that direction with it, then she needs to talk about what does the name Chugiak mean, or why is that the dog's name, or something, because it just was like a little too convenient that way. So I have said what I've been dying to say. So thank you guys so much. And yeah.
I had all the same. That is so crazy. Like, before I got to the part where the little girl says his name should be Chugiak, my notes were, why would he accept the name the Runt if he doesn't even know what Runt means? Like, she says the Runt, and he didn't even know what that meant. And then she starts calling him the Runt. Even though like it's third person, really, like we're still like, he's our only character. Like we're only in his point of view. So along with what Jamie says, even though you gave him she gave him a name, Chugiak, up to that point, it's very awkward. The fact that she keeps saying the Runt. And so I see what Jamie's saying about the color. I would be okay with Runt if early on he gets called Runt and he's like, I don't know what that means. I guess it's my name. And then Runt, not the Runt, but Runt, as if it's a name. He doesn't know what it means, so he accepts it as a name.
He just knows that, like, he gets the cookie when the guy says, here you go, Runt, and he starts to associate this is me or whatever, right?
My biggest suggestion would be, if she has not seen the movie A Dog's Way Home, I don't know if it's still in theaters or if it's coming out in DVD soon, she needs to go see it. The movie, you get the perspective from the adults, but it's mostly told from the dog's perspective in first person. So it would be different, but the way that they handle things, like from the dog's perspective, is I think what's missing from this story. For example, the dog as a puppy comes running up and the guy's eating a sandwich, and he goes, you want some of this? He goes, would you like a little piece of cheese? And the rest of the movie, the dog says that his favorite game is a little piece of cheese. Okay, but do you see how that makes you laugh? And like, that's what we're missing from this story. We're missing that kind of like humorous, like this is the dog's perspective. We're supposed to be getting the story from the dog's perspective, but it doesn't feel like it's the dog's perspective at all. It feels like there's this person out here floating. The dog did this. The man did this. It's all tell. And we're not getting any show. And I think it's because we're not inside the dog enough. You can still do that third person, but we need some more of that. Wait, I got to pull it back up here because again, I ran out of ink, so I couldn't print today. What else did I make notes of? There was only one grammatical error, which was like awesome. Like it was very clean copy. On the second page, it says his scratched so hard at the gate, which is supposed to be he. So I can see why you'd miss it when you read through. Because I almost missed it too. Other than that, like it was very clean copy and very impressed with that. But yeah, so that was my take on it. Rhonda?
Okay. All right. So I don't have a ton of critique for you. You know, I would prefer to have seen it in first person, just simply because to make it more real, that the dog knows like what the color black is and, you know, things like that. And because he doesn't know certain things, but he knows other things that a dog also wouldn't know. So I think if it was in first person, it would be a little bit more real to me. I'm not a fan of animal story, like where the animal's the hero. I never have, but even when I was a kid, I didn't. Well, except for Black Beauty. But anyway, but saying that, I was completely engrossed in the story, other than feeling a little bit outside of his head, like Jen said. With this, you using this the way you're going to be using it, as a reader, I would be 100% satisfied with it.
Yeah.
And I don't care about being the pup. You know, because in the beginning of the story, he didn't have a name, so it made sense that it was like that all the way through. But you know, I thought it was good writing, and you know, maybe you could improve a little bit here and there, but as a reader, I wouldn't have changed anything. I was totally satisfied, and it brought emotions out too.
Yeah, and I will agree with what Rhonda said. I mean, I believe that this is a reader magnet and sort of like a bonus type of a deal for people who are going to be then getting into Angelica's story. And to have the history of the pup is a very nice thing. I mean, I've always been a fan of the idea. And it's good to hear that it worked for someone who's not like a big animal story fan. I've not been able to read this as a reader. I always am feeling like, I guess because I read it originally. This is the thing. I was Tina's patron and I read it kind of before. And so I feel very much like an editor of the piece. So I think it's really nice to get a fresh take on it. So, okay. Do we have anything else to say to her?
I felt like there was something I was going to say, but I think I fell asleep for a second. So.
Oh no!
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No. Okay, come on out, Tina.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. That's some really great advice. I'm gonna have to look at the runt thing because I was focusing on her giving him a name, and I kind of overlooked the calling him the runt instead of calling him runt. And I have thought about having her say something about what the name means, but when I looked up the meaning of the name, it doesn't really mean anything that really inspired me.
What does it mean?
I don't remember now. That's how little it inspired me. And I just, from the beginning, I was like, what can I say that would be like, oh, this is why it's his name? Other than it's just a name that I like personally.
Because you could handle it a different way and not have to have the name come out right now. You know what I'm saying? Either the pups are marked or he's just called Runt all the time or something. So I mean, that's just it's author's choice, really. You know, I mean, like Rhonda said,
I got really tired of writing the pup.
Yeah.
It means place of many places.
Oh.
That's the meaning of like, you know,
totally that's completely inspiring. Not interesting.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, so what can I do? Like, I don't know. Maybe it could have been her mom's dog's name or something.
Right. It doesn't have to be. It just has to be meaningful to Angelica. It doesn't have to be meaningful to you. Right.
I haven't been able to come up with anything, and so I left it out.
You know what? Even if you just say she's a little girl, even if she says his name should be Chugiak, and the owner or the dad says, "Why Chugiak?" and she's like, "Because I like Chugiak." And then you can have the little dog say, "I liked her, so I like Chugiak too," or something like that.
Or she likes how it sounds, or she likes going and yeah. I mean, kids are funny.
Right, something, and then he can just like it because he likes her, But again, then I would feel more satisfied if we hear that from the dog, like, I like her too, so I guess I'm Chugiak now.
How do you feel about first person, Jen?
Honestly, first person is what I wanted to, but I was afraid to say it because that's a big, huge rewrite, and I didn't want to throw that at the. But honestly, that's what I wanted to.
But unfortunately, the struggle that I'm having is telling the story without it being telling. That's the struggle I'm having. How to get into the pup's head, Chugiak's head, in the third person. I'm really struggling with that. And so I'm kind of at a point where I need to decide, this is going to be a free reader's magnet, and it's a short story, and am I going to really invest that kind of energy into something that I really don't care about that much?
Let me give you the flip side of that coin. This is your reader magnet. The whole point of a reader magnet is to magnetize and draw people in. And if they read something that isn't satisfying or isn't your best writing, they're going to read this and they're going to be like, oh, this is how all of her writing is. I would say you put your best thing out there for your reader magnet. That's my opinion.
So then I have to decide do I want to use this or do I just put it aside? Because honestly, I don't think I want to put in the energy to change it to first person. And no matter how much I've rewritten this first scene, I don't seem to be able to do what I want with it. So it's just.
Well, were you saying that? I'm all in favor of putting it aside. I'm all in favor of you doing whatever you think. But you may want to, in your I'm just going to write random stuff moments, write some stuff in first person as Chugiak and see if you like it or not. If it feels too much like prescribed, like I'm doing this just because this is what would make the thing work and you don't want to do it, I'm just kind of making a suggestion that then you could see, is that the secret? Like just, changing the he's to I's, does that open up something in the story for you? Because then, you could still put it aside and say you're never going to publish it. But since you have to come up with something to write every day anyway, it might be fun to explore.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. It sounds like that's very disappointing for you.
That's the thing. It really isn't because
because you know why? I know because it's frustrating you, right?
Yeah.
You're like ready to put it aside, and I think we've just like maybe made it easier for you. We weren't telling you to put it aside.
And
You're
really, even when I was first writing it, when I came up with the idea, it was just a marketing idea, and it wasn't like a passion to write the story.
Whatever happened to the story about them being in a sled race? I thought that was going in a good direction. What about turning to that for your reader magnet?
I might have to go back to that. I kind of quit writing it because I got in the murky middle and I hadn't outlined it and it was just kind of fell apart.
Yeah, because it was really neat to see Petra and Angelica interacting as children, I thought.
How many months is it until your story comes out? When do you actually need a reader magnet? Could you put it aside for 2 or 3 months and then come back to it?
Well, I kind of wanted to have it done in May so that I could have it out 3 months before I want to have Lost out. So I'm just going to have to do some thinking. So
you're kind of in the place I was last fall when I wanted to have Searching for Anna out so I could everything else could, and it just didn't work out. It wasn't God's plan. So that's another thing too to consider. Like step back, spend some time in prayer, and ask God what His plan is for this book, for Angelica's book, and that's some really hard questions I had to ask too, and I still do. I mean, I have plans on when I want to release, but really, ultimately, it's in God's hands.
Right.
Well, go ahead, Tina.
The other thing that I've been struggling with is this idea that my reader magnet not being the same genre as the book I'm trying to draw people to. And I've really been feeling like that's a problem. Because how do I make a story about a puppy getting lost in the woods a dystopian?
Yeah, that's why Mom and I changed ours.
And so that's part of it. That's like, why am I putting all this energy into this when I don't think it's going to necessarily work as a reader magnet? Because as somebody who would enjoy a story about a puppy being lost in the woods, a journey, like a homeward bound kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness, Tina, watching you go through this process is like gold. I really regret that more people don't know about this postcast that we're doing, because this is some really tough decisions and you're having to make some mature business decisions about your career. And I really appreciate you just sharing with us what that process is feeling like to you.
Yeah. So I think my reader magnet needs to be in the dystopian genre, and I need to come up with something else.
All right, hold on.
Even if it's shorter, even if it's like a diary or something.
Well, why does it have to be? I mean, I don't understand why it can't just be in the same world and the same characters, and then it would in itself be.
Here's my worry. Somebody that would enjoy this like dog story, this homeward bound story, is not necessarily the reader that would enjoy the dystopian story. That's my worry.
How many books do you plan on writing in your dystopian series?
Originally, I wanted to write 3. And at this point,
maybe one.
Maybe one.
Okay. Because here's my thought. And all right, before you freak out, let me finish. What if Angelica were your reader magnet? What if you do like I did with Anna, offer it for free and also offer it for like the ebook for free and also offer it for sale so that there's a value added to it. When somebody gets my book for free, they can also see, well, I just saved this much money that I would have had to have paid. And then book 2 and book 3 are what you're funneling into. Now, some people freak out because they're like, I've spent so much time on that. I'm not going to just give it away. Well, you're either going to give it away or you're going to spend money in advertising.
I had
Either way,
decided I was going to give it away at first because I want people to read it. And I want a long-term career. I don't want to be a one-book author who needs to make money on that first book.
I really like that strategy, except I don't know that Tina wants to stay in the world of Lost for 2 more books. So I worry then she would have pressure to get books 2 and 3 out so that the magnet is actually doing the intended purpose, which is selling the downline or whatever, however the terminology is. So it's just a whole big matter of stuff for her to pray about, because she's really jazzed about some other projects that are not Lost episode 2 and Lost episode 3. And I think when you even talk to her about Lost, she's like where I am in the middle of editing my book, and she's just, oh, can I just be done? So, but I don't not like the advice. I'm just saying.
No, I totally, yeah.
Right. And another thing, if what I'm what I really want to write right now is this Civil War book.
Right.
But that's a totally different reader.
Well, I think that,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that we need to have some serious talk about that, Bambina. So
another question to pray about and to consider too. I know that we are all on the journey to publication, and that's our goal. But maybe the pressure, I don't know if that's the right word, but that the encouragement that we're all giving each other to publish maybe is causing more stress on you, because maybe you're not ready. Like I'm ready to publish because I have 4 books. When I first was writing book 1, which now is book 3 in the series, I thought I was going to be publishing in a year. And if I had kept pursuing that and kept pushing myself to hit that goal, I wouldn't have had the other books and I wouldn't be like where I'm at. So maybe that's like right now you don't want to think about books 2 and 3, but maybe it's because like you just need to give yourself more time.
Or maybe it's just the total opposite, like me. She just needs to publish so she can say she did it already.
Maybe.
I mean, I threw my book out there and I said, here, I have a book. Before I had book 2, before I had book 3, and whatever you want to say about what that did or didn't do for my career, I felt like it's what I needed to do. And so it could be one thing or the other, particularly because she has that draft sitting there. So
I feel like I need to publish it. Whether or not I ever go back and write 2 or 3, I'm going to publish it as if it's going to be a series. Okay. And, it could just be fatigue because I have been writing this stupid book for 10 years.
Yeah.
10 years. Mm-hmm. And maybe once it's published and I can put it away and work on something else for a while, then maybe I can come back to it. Mm-hmm. Because God gave me that story. I know he did. Mm-hmm. So
these are all things that you have to decide with God and to pray about. So, but we're here to encourage you, Tina, whatever you need from us,
right.
whatever decision you make.
You guys are great.
Yeah. We believe in your writing. We've read it.
Yes.
We know what you have. And so if you ever feel like we're being hard on you, it's because we know that to whom much is given, much is expected.
From the minute I read that prologue, I knew that this book had to get into people's hands, and your writing and your voice needs to be heard. So hang in there, girl. We'll help you figure out what you're going to do, and we'll be there for the journey. Okay.
And take another bite of elephant.
Yeah.
Yum.
Did you? Do you need any more feedback? Are you feeling good?
No, I'm good.
All right, moving on to Cozy Mystery World with Rhonda. What are you looking for, John? Rhonda?
Well, this is just an intro, and what I wrote was, this is Nettie's intro for the entire series of the books. So you guys know a little bit about her from the first book that we started writing that's on hold, so we can finish this one. So this is the beginning of Nettie. So useful, unnecessary, wordy, does it make sense? And this is like a polished second draft, so I know that there's going to be things to change, and I would just like to hear what your opinions of that are.
Okay, so into isolation with you. Who would like to talk first?
I have a lot of bread for this. The very first paragraph, you can see I've written there, I just have beautiful. I just feel like that the imagery and the language that she used was just beautiful and drew me in.
The tires crunching and all that, yeah.
Oh, just
train whistles. I love train whistles.
The forlorn whistle, but often the sound of steel meeting track was all that penetrated the blanket of pre-dawn serenity. Just poetic. I just really enjoyed that. You'll see throughout there's hearts, different places. I really like. Oh yeah, apoplectic. I can't say it at 10:30 at night.
Apoplectic.
Thank you. It's late. But she did, and Nettie loved her for it. I put a heart there because I love that, and I really enjoyed this. One of the meat that I have is like cacophony is one of those words that I stumbled on. Like I think that might I think it might be a little bit higher reading level and might draw the reader away from like just flowing through it. But that's just being nitpicky. Like some readers just skip it if they don't know what it means, but some might have to stop and try to figure out, so.
Now, see, I thought that was very telling of the character, especially when she used the word apoplectic. I kind of felt like Nettie is a word girl and that she would use words like that because she collects words. So like when I read it, it felt Nettie to me, even though it seemed like a word that might stumble people. So.
Right. So it's just that's going to be a choice you're going to have to make. Like you might lose some readers with some of the word choices, but I agree with you. I think that's just a very Nettie thing. So, yeah. So other than that, I liked it. I think that if this is going to be connected with the series, you have to have Nettie. You have to give us some insight into how she started. And so, that I enjoyed that. So I don't know why there are things in red. She didn't mention that, and I was going to ask her if those things are coming out, or maybe you guys have some more insight into that. But
I wondered that myself.
Okay. Anyone else?
I gave this the old treatment in a Google Doc. Because my critique was so thorough last week of her piece, and I didn't know if she would appreciate that again or not, and certainly not in a postcast. She was not looking for that, but I did. She sent me a Google Docs copy, and then I made a copy of that copy, and to look at the amount of things I suggested, which they are just suggestions, you would think that I did not like this piece. Though you would be totally wrong. I love this. I love, like, okay, so she says she struggles with third person, but not when she's writing Nettie. It's almost like she knows Nettie well enough that the third person works because she knows Nettie. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, Nettie is a very real to her, and I think that she's cracked how to write third person. And that's to really know the character. Some of the things, like it's that paragraph that you liked about complimenting Z, I suggested a moving of that paragraph because it seemed to jump up the narrative. We're talking about we're at the movie and suddenly we're talking about how much we love Z. So I suggested a change of where to put that paragraph, for example. So things like that I'm suggesting to the author, and she can take my suggestions or not. But I mean, really, you can tell she knows who this girl is. Now I know who this girl is. I love how she described, she jumped the curb. I mean, I've ridden a bike. I've been the girl pedaling around. It was very, very real to me, and bang on third person greatness. So good for her, because I know that's been a challenge. She'll see my meat in the edit that I'm sending her, and hopefully it'll be stuff that she can use.
Yeah, I mostly have bread too, because I got lost in the story and forgot I was supposed to be editing. But, like I found a few little typos or something, but nothing really big. And I don't know why I underlined she had 15 minutes to kill. I don't know. Maybe I was just playing with my pen.
Well, I took that particular part and I changed it into her internal thoughts. Oh, great. I have 15 minutes to kill before Mr. What's-His-Face is going to come let me in. So maybe it was just kind of to you, like it felt like it should be an internal thought instead of.
Yeah, that might be it.
Because, go ahead.
I really loved the interaction with her and Ralph.
Yeah.
This protectiveness with Z, and that she was going to make sure that Ralph wasn't up to any, shenanigans or whatever and all that. So it was just great to see who Nettie is and how she interacts with Ralph and with Z. And so I'm just anxious to read this.
I know it's going to be great. Very excited.
Agreed.
All right. Should we let her out?
Yes.
Come on out, John Rhonda.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that a lot. And honestly, the third person is mostly from Mom's influence. But you're right. Nettie is absolutely a real person to me. I mean, I don't know if you can see her, but she's sitting right there. It's not like a psychological problem for me or anything, I promise. So the red things, I actually meant to change the color on those, and I forgot. When Mom and I work on editing, we'll make sure that we see what we've changed. And I meant to take those out. I mean, not take the words out, but just change the color to black. So that was very helpful. I really appreciate it. I was afraid that you were going to suggest more changes. But although I haven't read Jamie's yet. But anyway,
nothing super like, I mean, you'll see. It's just suggestions that I think like helpful things. And let me know what you think, too, of my suggestions. I would like to know if you thought that they have merit or not.
I will do that.
All right. Is your back well fed?
Yes. Thank you very much.
All right. So my turn to shut up, which I'm sure the viewers will be very pleased to hear.
Never.
My voice can be silenced. I just want a bit of levity here. I glanced down as we were critiquing Tina's piece, about Chudiak and everything. And I glanced down to comment about Tina's story and read her perfect lips parted, but no words came out. And I went, where is that in the Chugiak story? It's Jen's piece. I'm like, Angelica's perfect lips parted. I'm like, my brain just had a total disconnect for a second. Okay, I'll shut up now and let you talk about my piece. Just talk about it generally, whatever you think. All right.
All right. Bye. Nice talking with you. All right, who wants to go first?
I will. I'm so flattered I've made it into yet another story.
Yes.
If even only for one sentence.
Did I typo it to Rhonda?
You did. I have it written right there. Who is Rhonda?
I wrote exactly what I wrote. I wrote, who?
Yeah. Well, for right now, all I'm going to say is that I'm really happy with the direction the story is going. I knew that she wouldn't change this, but I'm so sad at the end of this that he's back with the original wife, and I know she's got to be there. But anyway, I'm really glad this story is becoming what it is.
We all saw this early on, like sprinting, and then in the evening sharing this. Like we all were there when it was like rough first draft, and this version is just like it was good to begin. It was interesting to begin with, but now it's just so much more polished. I love this story. I can't wait to read the whole thing together. But so I mean that's my bread, is that I love it. I can't wait for more. My meat is honestly just editing things. There are some issues with paragraphs, like top of the second page. Oh my, indeed, Ramona said, winking at Sylvia. And then the rest of it should be the next paragraph. Sylvia was exhausted from festival, because that paragraph, oh my, indeed, is Ramona speaking. So if we're going to switch to what Sylvia is doing, it has to be a whole new paragraph. So there's a few of those, like 1, 2, 3, like 4 or 5 of those issues in here. On the first page, there's just too many attributions. Like you can take out, he's a kind and caring man, Sylvia said. Maybe you're right. Blah, blah, Ramona replied. Sylvia said. So I just took a few of those out. Because it's only 2 people talking. So it flows so much better if you just let them talk. And that's it. That's my only meat, is literally editing things that anyone can catch. It's such a good story, and I couldn't find nothing else wrong with it except for little things like that.
Yeah, the only thing, far be it from me to give anyone editing advice. Because you guys are so much better at the grammar and the punctuation and all that than I am. But what I would like to say is that I read the whole story for Jamie a while back, the first draft. And I really, really, I liked it. I'm not saying I didn't like it, but this, as she took it up several notches from that. And it's just so well improved from that. That I'm really excited to read it again and see all the changes, because it's just a different
feel, doesn't it?
It's like the difference between having a hamburger at McDonald's and having a hamburger at Fuddruckers.
Five Guys, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's elevated. That's the word
I'm
looking for. It's very elevated from the first one. And I'm not saying the first one was bad. It wasn't. But this is good. Really good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of it has to do with her, the character, Rhonda Ramona. I know she was in there before, but she really has added so much life to it. And it's almost like I know these aren't real people, but she's bringing more characterization of Sylvia out, I think, in their conversations.
I think she knows the characters better. Kind of like what she was saying about your piece. You know your character really well. I think that when she was first writing this and we first got a taste of it, she didn't know her characters that well. She had an idea where the story is going, but she didn't know them well. And I think now she knows who they are. She knows how they're going to act, and that shows up. I also think it's a testament to the amount of editing that she's putting in. We all know the murky middle that she has been struggling with, and it's been a frustration for her. But this here shows that it's paying off. And this is, again, like Jamie said, I wish more people knew about this postcast, because this is a good thing to see. It is hard to edit. Like, it is like painful sometimes to edit, but this is a testament right here to what, if you put the time in, what quality you can put out. And so just really impressed with it. Anything else? Well, that was easy. All right, James, you're out of isolation.
Well, what can I say except for yay, jazz hands, happy dance. They liked it. Hooray. That's awesome. And I do appreciate your feedback. But you don't have to keep saying that the first one was good because there's a reason why I didn't publish it. And there's a reason why I knew it needed the work right now. Now, granted, Tina read something you guys did not ever see. Because when this first started, it was very much like once upon a time in a little town, this and this and this event happened. Okay. Yeah. And then what happened was I published, I'm sorry, Jen, I know you're really exhausted, but since there's not a lot of meat to respond to, I just kind of want to. So then when I threw Second Chance out into the world and my daughter and I were brainstorming about where this could go as a series, I realized that I had this story over here that could tie in. The problem was it was very much once upon a time, and it was just not even anything like what I needed to fit into the series. And so it went from just like once upon a time, all this crazy stuff happened into this town to like, well, now I have to, like Jen said, I have to have characters with motivations and growing and everything like that. And so it was funny because Rhonda is like, what do you think is like your problem? And I think that for me, my problem was trying to reshape something instead of possibly just letting that story be what it was. And if I wanted to be like, and then they all lived happily ever after the end and the wolf blew the house down or whatever I was going to have happen, instead of then trying to take this whole thing and smush it up and cram it into a Jell-O mold to make it like fit in. Like, so in other words, how do I not do this to myself again? Right. Because I don't want to do this to myself again. And so when Rhonda asked me, I for a minute, I was just like, well, it was just so bad before. And it wasn't really that it was bad. It was just not this thing. And so I'm trying. So anyway, this is version 3, and I'm glad that it's elevated from what Tina read, because Tina read version 2, which was taking once upon a time, blah, blah, blah. And now I have this character and she's having this life stuff. So whatever, all of that just to say, I'm so glad that I have seemed to be getting through this, because I just keep telling myself, I'm not doing this to myself again. This is not what my writing career is going to be, is, like taking a fingernail that hasn't been filed for 5 years and just sitting here with an emery board trying to get the thing to have a shape. It's been exasperating. So I just feel really good to be able to vent about that. So thank you for listening to me. I hope the rest of the book doesn't disappoint you guys also.
All right,
because,
do you think it's not as good as what we just read? Is that
well,
what you're worried
it's
about?
just funny because you're sitting there, Jen, and you're like, well, I read this romance and the disasters don't happen at 25%. And I'm like thinking, yeah, I mean, this, like, the story is a romance story, but it's like, so I just tell myself, well, it's sci-fi romance. So Jen, did you know that the genres are different in that, the disasters actually happen here and here in sci-fi romance? Like, could I fool you? But anyway, it's like totally not going to be probably the right tropes or the right whatever. But I know that the story will carry people now. I believe that it will. And whether or not it's a success, I will be able to be proud of it. So I really thank you guys so much for
I don't think you actually heard what I said earlier.
Yeah.
What I was saying was it was so well written that it didn't matter.
Yes.
That we followed so I don't think you have to worry about it.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. But you know what I'm saying? Like, because you can get all up in your head about it. You'd be like, oh, but wait a minute. When does this happen? Am I 75% through my book yet? And oh my goodness. And so if you let too much of that noise get into your head, it can be like, anyway, I'm already feeling blah, blah, blah. And so I'll just be quiet. But thank you. Yes. Thank you for the feedback.
Could you define bleddity bleh?
It's kind of like talk.
Well, I was just telling Jen that a lot of the times sitting down to do the writing is overcoming, like, what is the point? Is anyone ever going to even read this book? And that is part of the difficulty of getting your butt into the chair some days, because you don't have an inbox that you can just do a certain amount of work and have an outbox at the end of the day and feel like, that is what I accomplished. This just feels like trudging and sludging and grinding, right? And so anyway, just this right now is like a marathon situation. And Tina, that's what I was trying to express to you. I knew when you were in the middle of editing Lost that you were doing that same thing. It's like, I'm just grinding away at this project. So I think that's what a lot of people don't realize editing is all about,
Right. And I have to do that again.
Ay, caramba.
All right. Do you feel like you're back as well fed?
Oh, very much. I appreciate that. So now we can talk about our lovely little small town romance.
All right. So this piece here is actually newer than lots of what you guys have read, because originally when I was writing book 3, it was going to be, yes, third person, but only from her perspective. And then as I started doing the series, I realized that the other books needed to be from 2-person perspective. So I needed to switch this one. And so I like that we're inside Will's head. I don't think we've done enough of that yet in the book, because, for so long we had to not know where Will was. So, yeah, so I'm just giving you that little bit, but, I don't really know what I want because it's after 11 o'clock at night. So
you want to stay awake for the whole
I want to stay awake while I'm quiet over here. So
that's what you want.
All righty. So into the chamber you go. And I know Rhonda's going to have a lot to say about this. Let it loose, Rhonda.
Okay. So it has been a hard road for me to feel endeared toward Phoebe. She's, out of all the characters, she's my least favorite. And that doesn't mean I don't like her at all. But in the last couple scenes that we've read, I've really started to soften up toward her a little bit. Well, that's gone. Okay. So
how dare she even entertain flirtation from another man?
I know. No, that's not really what it is.
I know.
And I'm joking. I don't really we're not back at square one with Phoebe again, but I just feel like if she's going to be a preacher, then regardless of what her personal emotions are, she needs to get a better handle on them, because if she's standing in the church doors and having a temper tantrum, that's not impressive coming from a pastor. And I realize that this is probably part of the romance trope. She's got to have moments like this, but I didn't like it. And, I realized that I was supposed to feel emotion there, and I did. So that worked. And sometimes I probably get a little too emotional about my characters, but I do get invested.
You do get invested, and you're also a really big fan. So I feel like for you to have a criticism or some meat for a piece, that it's worthy of note, right? Because I don't think that you often have thick meat, so to speak.
Yep. But honestly, that, like I said, I know that characters need to have moments like this. But I don't know. If she's going to be, maybe I've got higher standards for her because she wants to be a pastor. Maybe that's it. And also I need to tell myself she's not a real person. Not a real person. I forget that. But the rest of it is all total bread. I don't have a single complaint about anything. Of course, Will is fantastic. And I think he handled himself really well, because if I was a guy in that situation, I was like, oh, bye, Felicia, but that, anyway, that's probably just my personal, it is my personal opinion.
Well, I really would like to know. So it didn't work for you that she brought him inside almost like immediately into the altercation. I mean, she does have exclamation points on the first page. So she is screaming before she gets inside. Because as you were relaying, I'm like, okay, so what are you talking about? Because I couldn't remember her having a big fit outside. And so I went back to look in the piece. So it obviously did not work for you that she had any reaction outside. She should move him inside before she kind of like lets it fly, right? Like he shouldn't have to be the one to be thinking, calm down, you're out in front of all of these people, right? Like you're saying, like, would that fix it for you if they just get inside faster?
Well, it would, but I don't know what's coming next. You know, I can't remember that Biddy's name from up there who was waiting for her to fail.
Yeah.
So is this going to be fodder for that?
Right. So maybe she needs that scene, you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah. Tina, do you have an opinion about that?
I also felt like, I don't know if I can put my finger quite on it, what I felt, but I did feel like Phoebe was overreacting. Like her behavior didn't match. And I guess that's what Rhonda was saying, who she's supposed to be as a pastor. It does seem kind of childish, I guess, the little temper tantrum about people not telling her that he was there. Maybe I wanted her to be more coy. I don't know.
I totally understand. And I feel like, again, like how Nettie is like a word person, I feel that Will just kind of brings this out of Phoebe because she gets around him and suddenly they're 10 and 12 years old again, or whatever the dynamic was when he kissed her, right? So I feel like she is childish around him because that's the nature of their relationship. They're still those children trying to just navigate being adults around each other. So to me, I didn't have the issue with, my meat is different than that is all that I'm saying. So, but you can go ahead and keep sharing. Sorry.
I was also irritated with Will because I didn't understand why he was allowing her to act like that and not getting mad. So, I guess I wanted him to tell her to grow up. I don't know. I guess I just wanted him to have a little bit, to stand up to her a little bit more. I don't know. But that just be my personal preference in guys. Because, I've had relationships before where the guys were too intimidated to stand up to me. I'm very strong-willed. And as soon as I realized that, I wanted nothing to do with them. So, like, total turn off. If you can't put me in my place, then, go away.
Yeah.
I don't want to be put in my place, but you need to be able to do it. You know what I'm saying? So maybe that's what's bothering me. I don't know. I wasn't happy with either one of them.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what the author wants at this point.
Right.
I don't know.
As far as I was concerned, Will, I think he kind of knew maybe that Phoebe would react like this when she found out. And he was just kind of waiting out the temper tantrum. And maybe, being the children that they, the relationship is, like Jamie said, maybe he was just kind of poking just a little bit by being so calm. And also, he's an officer. He's been through the war. He's an officer. And I'm sure he sees all sorts of worse situations from people than that. So he probably has practice at keeping his cool. So I wasn't bothered by him at all.
But my bread is, the fact that she's such a good writer that she took this non-romance fan and I'm invested in these characters enough to be irritated with them. So there we go.
Yeah. I mean, when I came into this, I really didn't have the overreacting childish meat. And I think it is because at my wedding, the pastor said, never forget that inside of each of you is a little boy and a little girl who wants to be loved. And so whenever I think about like, gosh, if little kid Stash would have met little kid Jamie, how would that have been? And so like for me to imagine that this is kids that grew up together and are like falling in love and kind of the big brother, you're so annoying thing could be happening here. So maybe that's why it didn't seem so, but then again, to me, also, I think I gave it a pass because I don't read romance, and a lot of the things that I think are ridiculous happen in romances anyway. Like girls have temper tantrums and stamp their feet and pout, and like whatever I would not like about romance would happen. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think that all of that kind of got a pass from me for those couple of reasons. I just kind of felt a little like I could tell this was a new voice for the writer. Now I am this man, right? And it didn't flow as well as kind of John did when she was writing John's perspective. And I think that maybe a little of what I was missing, and gosh, I can't really say she was just telling, but it just felt pretty telly. I went to the church. I sat in the pew. It felt a little too much like, then I did this thing and that was a mistake. And then it was really reactive and actiony and not so much like, who is Will, right? Like maybe if the author just spent a sprint writing as Will in first person and just got into his head and figured out how he talked and blah, 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 it would feel a little better. Maybe some references to, her face got red just like it did that day that I kissed her. I mean, just call back maybe to their earlier relationship. Because that was kind of my meat, was just I was not really loving this voice for Will, right? I did love the altercation between the other guy. I loved how he got real protective of her and like bulldoggy, but still had to. And I think too that it's because this author has it in her head. Okay, I can't make him be too weak. Okay, he has to, she has worries about how Will is going to be instead of just letting Will be Will. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I feel like she's saddled herself with this expectation that she has to toughen Will up, right? Because she doesn't want him to seem too weak to the reader. And so maybe it has kind of like paralyzed her and not allowed her to really write him. You know what I'm saying? Like, she just needs some liberty with him, writing as him. You guys see what I'm going at there? Or am I totally...
Yeah, this is really the first scene where he's really associating with her, though. I'm going to give her a chance for a minute. I will say, though, Gregory needs to lose his sass with Will. He needs to have some respect.
And that's what I liked, though, because the way that Will reacted to Gregory was showing us who Will is. Will is not a hothead. Will is not going to punch the guy out, And so I think that's why I liked that part. And I wanted more of like revelation about Will instead of mechanics about him walking here and sitting there. I don't know. I really hope this is helpful to her, especially so late at night.
Yeah. And I just want to say
watch it later.
I just want to say that I think the whole scene with Gregory, that portion of it, I think that's just fantastic. And, I just want to know what his ulterior motive is and all that.
And don't you just love to hate him? He's so sleazy.
Yeah.
Very well written. I mean, just so. Okay, I think that's enough from me. Anybody else have any more?
I think I've said enough.
All right, come on out, Jen.
All right, thank you, ladies. I really appreciate that. I probably am going to have to watch this later because I'm trying to absorb everything you guys are saying, and it's really difficult this late at night. I am shocked at a few of the things. Like, for example, Phoebe is there's nothing coy about Phoebe ever. So like that, if that's what you're hoping for, then you might as well put the book down because you're not going to see that at all with her. And then there's a lot of my grandpa in Phoebe, who my grandpa was a pastor. And so some of these things you guys are saying that, well, pastor needs to be this way and pastor needs to be that way. And I'm like, my grandpa never was. Like, he like broke the mold. And so like, because so that's kind of surprising to me to hear that, because she is like going to not fit what everyone thinks a pastor should be. And that's going to be what causes some of the problems. Because you got to have problems, right? Or otherwise, what, I was confused at first what Rhonda was saying about the temper tantrum. So I thought you meant on the stairs at the church. You said stairs. So you meant like when he caught her in that whole scene. So I guess I'll have to relook at that. But like, if it were me in her shoes, I would have been yelling way more. I would have been so upset. Like, you guys see it as a temper tantrum, and I see it as like she's completely in shock. at what's just happened. And that's just her reaction. But I'll have to look at that again. Like I said, like I'm gonna have to watch this again too and see. But
yeah, I didn't pick up shock. I just picked up anger.
Well, yeah.
So.
Well, and I think that
she's got a temper.
I think that you've set us up to where she's really minding her P's and Q's because she knows the whole town is watching. And that's the setup you've given us, is that being a pastor and making these people like her is in the forefront of her mind. And yet Will has to remind her of that in the scene. And I think that that's maybe what the disconnect is because you've set us up like she's very self-conscious of all of the naysayers and what are they going to think, and she's taking cookies to win people over, and yet that's not the forefront of her mind as she's having this confrontation with Will out in the yard. So I think that that's why it feels to them out of character more, maybe.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. And I think that like you hit the nail on the head, Jamie, when you said that Will brings this out in her. That's how I've always seen this. It's that you'll see when she loses her temper, and she loses her temper in other scenes too with other people, that she's trying to be a pastor. She's trying to control and be what they want. But then when her emotions get the best of her, then the Phoebe comes out, like the temper comes out, and she tells people what to do, like, where to stick it basically. And so.
And I think that will come across better when we have like the
whole book
in context.
Yeah.
Because that's what I said at the end, but that might be exactly what you want. Like, this is her flaw. And
for sure.
And if that comes out as part of the story, that now we're seeing her flaw, then that works.
So, but I may not be doing it right. So we'll see. Right. This is part of the murky middle too, to where I was just like, oh, I know what I want to happen, but it's just not happening. And so we'll see. So thank you guys. I really appreciate that. And I'm sure I'll appreciate it a lot more tomorrow at 9 a.m. when I watch it again.
Well, and I have to say, so 1 out of 3 of us is just like, well, okay, like, because I don't read romance, to me, this is like next chapter in a romance story. Do you know what I'm saying? Again, I would appreciate the voice to be a little more Will-ish to me. But you could look at that as a wish list thing too. I mean, it advances the story and it's, mission accomplished. But I'm 1 out of 3. And so, we'll just have to take a look at it.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies. I appreciate it.
All right. Are we actually done? Do we cover all of it?
We did.
Phew. All right.
And so are we all 1 bottle of Cherry Coke Zero to make it.
Are we all sleeping in tomorrow? Or are we still going to be in our office hours at 8:30?
Well, I have to get up at 7:30 to do a video chat with my daughter because we do devotions together every morning. So I'll be up.
All right. Yeah, I was planning to be 8:30. I know Rhonda 9:30. Jen has other stuff. She is like life taking over her world.
Yeah, but, so I probably have to be there at 8:30 in order to be done. We'll see though. Honestly, you guys know me. If I will be useless if I don't gonna sleep. So we'll see how tonight works.
Slip also.
Yeah. Blah, blah.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching and for being our patrons. Spread the word, tell your friends, and if we've helped you in some way, please let us know.
Bye everyone. Thanks a lot.
Bye.